Okay, we're going to be working with the step sequencer. This is one of the tools inside Logic which really got a lot of a new update in 10.7. So I want to go through a number of the features that have been updated, talk about them a little bit. I'm still getting more familiar with this, so I think that there's probably some more stuff to learn and grow with it, but I think that it's starting to settle a little bit, and I'm really able to see some of the benefits of the new tools that we have here. So first and foremost, let's talk about some of the new ways to input some stuff into this. We have right here the ability to do step record, and so let's look at that. Actually, let's load up a drum kit for this one. And I had a hard time at first finding where this was, but we have a new filter system in the library, so we can actually see a lot of the sound packs and producer packs here, and we can actually filter by those, which is kind of cool. So we have, for instance, the vintage drum machines here, and we can come in and just pull out some of these, which is really kind of cool. So we can load up, and it's going to show us all of the options down here. So now, so if we want to start entering some of these in with the step mode, the step record, we turn it on here, and the red box is what's going to show us what step we're on. And so I'm usually keeping now my hands on the keyboard with the arrows so I can go between them, and I've got my hand on my Midi keyboard so I can do something like this where I tap in a key. It's going to snap it down to the hi-hat closed. So then I've got that entered in, and I can go back and forth and see where I am. So for instance, I can come here and hit the kick, skip ahead with the arrows, and move it around. This is not my favorite way of entering in the stuff with this. My favorite way is to have my iPad right here and use the touch screen. But this is it's actually a really fast way for some people. Some people like this kind of mode, but it's not the only way. We can, of course, still use our, just the mouse and click on things too. Let's move this up towards the beginning of our track. Put a little loop on. There we go. So I entered that all in, combination of keyboard and my arrow keys. Of course, if you have drum pads, I've got one of the Akai minis, and so I have the drum pads. I could do it with those if I wanted to. But this method of using the step record can be very efficient and work really well. The next way that is kind of cool and exciting would be this, where we get to do actually play the notes in with our MIDI controller. So this may be better. Before I show you that, there's one more thing with the step record that I wanted to show, and that is if you're doing more, well, with any of them, but if you want to do multiple notes on a thing, it doesn't move on to the next step until you release from the key. So if I want to do a chord, I could do the C, G, C, and then when I let go, it goes to the next one. So for instance, if I want to make these all like half notes, so then we have those right there. Let's go back to the beginning. And we can just repeat that out if we want to. Like that. So if you want to do the multiple notes, you just make sure you don't let go of any note. The minute you let go of the last one, it'll move on to the next step. So that's pretty handy. We could also, if I wanted to slow that down, let's just make them whole notes like that. So let's add like a bass. If we want to do a bass in this, I don't normally, wouldn't be doing too many basses this way. Ooh, I just made a Midi file. Just pattern there. Okay, cool. So we can also record into this. And so we're going to do that. And let's find one of our new producer packs here. See if we have anything with some basses. I haven't looked too much through these, but let's see if what we have here. Bass. We have a bass patch, a solid soul electric bass. You see it just wrote them all in because we still have that turned on, but let's turn it off and do record into this. But before I do that, let me just play along with it and see what I got. And that's going to be a little tricky since there is a little bit of latency, but we're gonna give it a shot. Oh, and actually, this is one thing. We may look at this a little bit later. Just because, yeah, I think with the latency stuff, it's too much. So let's just do the stepping into this real quick. And we're setting these as quarter notes. So I'm going to do... So with a latency issue, that actually works super nice. Okay, so we have some ways to get that in. Right off the top of my head, I was listening to that and I was thinking this would be a really cool time to do something with the new ramp function here, where we can come through with our velocity, and it's the Option Shift, and do a nice build up with that. So Option Shift after I click on the first one, and then I can move. I click on the one that's at the end of the ramp, and then I can move it, and it all just does a nice even build. That little hi-hat moving up into that thing, I think, is just so smooth. It can create just a nice little effect there that works really well. Okay. Let's see what effects we have on that. We don't really have... There's a lot of effects on it. Not all of them are turned on. Okay, so that's kind of cool. The other thing with the step record is that you can actually do this with controls like continuous controllers and other control functions in Midi. It doesn't go to the next step. You always have to do that yourself. And so if we wanted to say, let me just create a new track here for a moment. If we wanted to put a pedal on, you'll see I can tap the pedal as many times as I want, but I have to always use the arrow key to get to the next one. And so that doesn't really help too much. By the way, you can use the delete key to delete those. So we can do that with any of the controllers or the other modulators and things inside here. We can use the input. It just doesn't do anything until we actually go on with the arrow. We can, let's see, use the new key command option to do tied notes. So we don't have to go into any other thing for tied notes. We can do that there. So that, for instance, if I wanted to create another instrument here, let's find something cool. Let's see how that sounds. Cool. So we have an interesting sound there. So not necessarily doing it that way, but if we do it normal, if I wanted to actually hold this note out, command option, and then I could go to the next one, command option, and we're going to have to go to a longer set of steps for this because we want it to let's see. Let's get rid of that one, get rid of this one. We'll take this one up to that one. And then, so we could do it that way. One thing that's kind of cool, let's go back to 16 steps for a second. Back to the beginning. Okay, so back out to here. So we could actually take this and transpose it and do other stuff with it, but I want to look and just show you one of the other really cool things we have with this. If we're doing like a lead like this, and maybe it's even a monophonic synth, we can put this into mono mode now, and that means that anything I do here is going to delete the other note, and just you can only have one in each of the vertical slots. So then I could just be really creative knowing that no matter where I click, it's going to pull it off of the original one and just take it to the next one. This is obviously also super handy if we're working with drums because, well, certain, like if we have a hi-hat thing that we're doing, it's nice because then we can just have it switch between the drums and it'll never do a simultaneous open and closed hat, for instance. So it's really, really handy for that. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have all of the stuff. So I don't, I think there's a certain limit to what we're going to actually do with the step sequencer in a track. You like a lead like this part is kind of interesting to have it in this mode. Bass, I could see me doing a lot with the step sequencer and the bass part like that. The drums, obviously, I love doing drums like this, but chords, I usually just go back and do things with Midi itself. And so I'm not doing too much in terms of like the piano roll versus the step sequencer. Because I do like this, but there are some things that, I don't know, are a little bit different. So in the sense that I actually do want to try to create this in that way, let's actually look just slightly at this track because I want to use the automation function to maybe adjust this a little bit. So we could, I don't think that's the right one as much. Let's see what we have for this. It's like I like a little bit of motion in here. So let's add, well, we can just do it this way. Let's add, let's see. So I did the learn function essentially, and then just moved the parameter. And we're going to move that like this so that's on all the time. And then what I want to do is use the new Option Shift and have it move through here at those spots. This may or may not actually, let's do this. Let's give ourselves a little bit more of a range here to work with. You don't have to have the same step value for each of the steps. So I'm doing this over a wider range. And then, because we don't have to have each of these rows go in the same way, we're going to have it go forwards, then backwards. And this brings out one of my main reasons why I might actually want to use a step sequencer for something like this. You can't do backwards automation on a linear track. I mean, I can draw this all out exactly right, but if I make a cool pattern and then just want it to like go back and forth, that's like a few extra steps to do that with automation instead of doing it here in the step sequencer. So you end up with something a lot cooler. I mean, cooler, something different that you can do in a very different way here than you could do it with anything else. Okay, so let's see. A few other things that we could look at here. But most of the newest things we've looked at and how they are integrating into the workflow a little bit. So the mono mode, the step record, the live record. The one thing, and actually I'm going to try this out real quick because somebody had an idea earlier about the drum track. And as I talked, I did a live stream earlier today, and I talked about this a little bit with the drummer track and how I'm not able to convert this into one of the patterns like that. There were some ideas for this. I think I'm not exactly sure if there's a way over here to change anything. So it says no transpose. That could be part of this as well. Although I'm curious as to why. So let's just do really quickly. I'm going to record a new track up here. Okay, so the drum's obviously on the wrong track, but that's okay. With this one, I can set it to not transpose and do all of that. This one here, though, now I can. Okay, so that's interesting. Before it was all grayed out, but so our biggest concern right now is that not concern, but it looks like a bug so far is that we can't convert this into a pattern region for whatever reason. It's having that issue, and that's something we'll look forward to. So I want to be able to have my drummer play whatever I want it to do, and so we don't necessarily have the ability to convert it over into use the step sequencer for easy editing of the patterns. Right now we're limited. I mean, I can come through here and move the MIDI around even. I wonder if I edit it at any point, if it actually starts. No, still won't let me do it. So I'm going to be trying some various things over the next few days to see if I can't figure out or crack the code around this particular bug, so that we can do it. Some questions or things in there. Yes, this is 10.7. This is we're looking at the new features of the step sequencer. It came out yesterday afternoon, so we're just over 24 hours into 10.7, and then the last question is, am I having trouble converting to pattern just with the drummer tracks? For some reason, I haven't cracked the code on this. I was hoping to spend a little time earlier today figuring it out, but if anyone's joining and is like, oh, I know how to do that, then let me know. But so far, even though this is currently a MIDI track, it won't let me do it. It won't let me make it into a pattern track like I can. So, for instance, this top one here, I just played that in, recorded it. I can convert that to a pattern region and then edit it from there. But this one that came from the drummer track, still no luck on figuring that out. So we'll see exactly why or what's happening with it. I wonder if we did a transposition here. It did some kind of function to it. we're going to select and operate so that it's actually, it didn't really do anything, but yeah, it's still, okay, we'll see. If anyone has any ideas who's watching, I know there's a few of you out there. If you have any ideas, drop them in the comments for sure, because it is something that is driving me crazy a little bit. But it looks like it's a bug, not necessarily a feature. If I had $1 for every time I said that for logic, I'd be a rich, rich person. Okay, cool. So, so the question, I see your question up there about drummer performances coming already programmed by Logic, so you can't make your own MIDI performance and make that a drummer pattern. Actually, yes and no. So the truth is that I've got a drummer track right here. And I mean, this could be a good discussion to have. So this thing has its own performance, right? And you can do all your stuff with it. So if I get to a place with this pattern that I really like, I can convert this super easy to a MIDI region. And then with MIDI here, I can say, you know what? I really like everything we're doing here, except I want bar 4. I want the drummer to go silent until the end there. So I'm just going to delete that section. Then there's like something in the song, and it keeps on going. And I deleted more than I was hoping. So let's go back and just do the part that I was thinking right there. So maybe then it drops like it's like a fill back into this. And we don't need to hear it again. But that's, so I can actually come through, customize this drummer performance all I want now with the MIDI. And the real goal for me would be to say, I want this to actually be a pattern region. And maybe instead of doing this with the SoCal or the drummer track at all, let's add a new track here. And for our instrument, let's make this the drum designer. So we can come through and, you know, customize the kick. And I want like a little bit different snare. Perfect, right? So then I can drag this down onto that track, and we have the original drummer pattern from Logic converted to MIDI, put onto this drum designer kit. And there we go. But in theory, because this is a MIDI track, I should be able to say, make it a pattern region, and then do that in the step sequencer, which would be a lot easier to program than it is in its current state as a MIDI track, because it's just not as easy to do that here. With all the tools you can, I mean, it's all possible, but we're talking like efficiency. Do I want to be efficient when I'm doing this, or do I want to like come through here and be like, okay, let's drag this down, or oh shoot, which one? It's like, this is not the ideal place for pattern work compared to something else. For whatever reason, this is still listed as a drummer track. And I know it's a drummer track because, for instance, if I pull this one down onto the actual drum, the drummer, and I say convert, it's like I can convert to MIDI region right here. And actually it says to drummer region too, but the drummer region is it's gonna change all of the notes. I mean, that doesn't maintain. When you go to a drummer track region, it gets rid of all the existing MIDI and just makes it something else. So we don't want to do that too often. You'll lose any work you've done. So for instance, if I say, oh, I really miss what I had before, let's convert this over to the drummer region. That section I had pulled out it's there again. It's not, they didn't maintain the break I'd put. So until either the bug gets fixed that says even these MIDI tracks can be converted, then we're not anywhere new. In fact, I really feel like, so this track right here, convert to drummer region. I think we should be able to go straight from drummer region to the pattern region because, I mean, they're so closely related. I don't know why I can just go to MIDI region instead of out there. I mean, it's not even an option when I do that there. At least here, there's a whole bunch of additional options down there. So that's the issue. That it's just, it makes it a little bit trickier to do. So far, I can't find a way to do it, I guess. And that part is a little frustrating. And I've tried various things. Let's do this. Let's do a export as MIDI file, right? Cool. I don't even know. I just wanted the one, but that's fine. So we're going to call this test MIDI export. Someplace messy like my desktop. And then, let's see. So we'll bring this back into here. No. And there it is. So I exported as MIDI, brought it back in, and it still won't let me do it. So this is a mystery. There's something about that file that it doesn't want to be, it doesn't want to pretend it's really MIDI in this one function. And for those who, I'm assuming you weren't in my earlier live stream. For instance, like I can bring out, let's do just software instrument loops, and let's just do kits. So I can come through all of our loops in this one category, MIDI files under kits, and let's just do all drums. There's, 1,449 things. Right, say you're like, oh, I love that beat. That's what I need. I brought this one out, right? I can right click on this, say convert to pattern region. And it wouldn't let me do everything, but pretty close. Looked like a couple of them may have been too fast. However, you saw, I just did that with an Apple loop that I pulled out from Logic's own library. And so now we can easily use all of our beats that are programmed in here as well to get something we want. So I sometimes am hearing people talk about specific things. Let's pull out some jazz, all drums. And so now we've got cool jazz drum set. Let's pull this one out. It's going to load up the kit. I'm going to right click on this, convert this over to pattern region. And so now I've got this kit. And we've got this jazz thing that we can now come through and edit all we want. So it's kind of cool that we can do that, expand some of our, styles that we're working in, not drummer styles, but these other genres, and then convert them into step sequencers so you can really edit them without having to worry so much about MIDI and things like that in the actual piano roll view. Yeah, so the actual data, you're right. This is coming from a comment about the drummer data is different than MIDI. Um, it is and it's not. It's still MIDI data. I mean, they're using MIDI data. In fact, the drummer itself is the Ultra Beat plugin. So, for instance, on our SoCal here, if I use the producer kit, we load up the full producer kit. Let's go into our mixer for a second. So a lot of these, we're using this drum kit designer, but they're essentially built on the back of existing technology. And so we're not doing a ton of different things with this, although it looks potentially like with the new version that we're getting more along with the drum kit designer here. Let's see if, yeah. So we have all of those coming out. It's not like revolutionary technology. These are still just samples that are getting triggered, and Logic does everything with MIDI. It's just intelligent MIDI, so it's getting adjusted as the performance. So when you come into the grid of something here and you say louder, it's like, oh, let's trigger this particular set of data, or let's trigger that set of data, or we'll turn on the tom data and turn off the snare data. It's not completely different protocol. That's why when I come here and I say to this one, convert to MIDI, it's all there. And if I'm here, I solo this track out with that MIDI data right there. It plays the instrument the same as if it was the drummer track. So either one, I mean, it's accepting MIDI and it's accepting this drummer region in the same way. So it really is, while it's encased a little differently, it's still almost all the same stuff. Once I put this into the MIDI version, though, once I make this the MIDI version, there should be no reason I couldn't put it into one of these other things like the pattern. So that like I said, I think it's probably just some short-sighted switch up in 10.7, but it's likely to be coming at some point. But so we can expand with all of the loops and make those into patterns. Being that our theme tonight is the step sequencer, I think it's great to be able to convert any of these things into the step sequencer in terms of our loops, because there's a lot of really cool things we can do with it. Piano, for instance. Again, we could just use this data just like it is. And that's not a bad way to do this. You have your score, you can see the parts, but there's something I like about being able to, with some of these things, work with them in the step sequencer. And so we have an interesting way to change some of our data into that view. Once we do that, of course, we lose the piano roll and the score. But at any point, say we've changed this all, we can come through here and still convert that back to a MIDI region, and all of what we just did is there. So it's all interchangeable, which is kind of cool. So we can go back and forth with those and use whichever one makes the most sense in the situation. as I was saying earlier, I would never just do a whole song in the step sequencer for all the various tracks. That's what I had done kind of at the beginning. Let's go back there. Makes me feel a lot more like we're working FL Studio when I do that, because FL Studio is built all around like a step sequencer vibe like that. And so it reminds me of the good old days of using FL Studio for beat stuff. Yeah, so LA Winter, I agree. Making MIDI into patterns is so nuts. I, there are so many things that I think of in my own music that are cyclical, meaning it's like patterns. I love patterns and stuff. And being able to really easily say, you know what, I like this section. It's like, you know what, I'm just going to copy and paste that over into the next section. And it's like I've got it already there at that point. I mean, this whole pattern workflow is so easy to use. I love it. And then we can do this. And in this particular pattern, it's like all of a sudden we're in the second section that we're using it. Let's do something different with it. It's like we can add in, the claps or rim shots. And not only that, but there's a few things I can do here which I can't I mean, you can do it anywhere, but you can't easily say, I want to do like a note repeat here and just like fry the heck out of it. So it's like that kind of thing right there, that workflow right here, something in the step sequencer, which is possible. You can do it out in the piano roll. You can split a note into 16 little segments and have them all there, but that's not efficient. I mean, that's a total mind meld. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, so this helps with those type of sounds in a way that you can't get anywhere else. So the other comment from LA Winter is the pitch shifter step mode changes the pitch of the sound now instead of playing a different MIDI note. Cool. Let me try that out. I haven't checked that out yet. So you're saying, for instance, trying to think of a way to, I'm going to do it this way, I think. Okay, undo that. I just had to turn it on. Okay, that was a horrible little thing because I didn't even have the full thing selected, but will give us the idea. Just showcasing some of my favorite features still. So for instance, well, we can just do it this. So what were you saying? The note mode, The pitch shifter step mode changes the pitch of the sound now instead of playing a different MIDI note. Which one are you talking about for that? What am I missing with what you're saying there? Type it up while I'm looking at the other thing. You're saying the note mode instead of the pitcher mode. Pitch shifter step mode. You're talking about in here. Maybe. No. Gate tie the note mode. So we can do octave transpositions in here, loop start and note repeat, chance, start offset, step rate, and skip, gate tie, velocity value. Try it on drums, change the note of the step on a drum in a drum machine designer. Okay, I'm on it. Drum machine designer. I've got one here already loaded. And let's do it with the kick for a second. We'll do note mode. I see what you're saying. Because in the past, what that would have done was, it would have like changed it to the other notes, right? It would have, because if you're triggering different note values, normally it would like switch to a different sound. But in this one, because we're using the drum machine designer, I'll have to do this with the drum kit designer in a second. There's two things that are going on here. One is I'm using the DMD for this particular one, and each of these are separate sounds, meaning each one is like its own whole engine. You're funneled into them from the outside. So if I have this drum machine designer situated and I play the different notes, it's going to trigger each one, but each one still has all of its own like pieces inside. Like this one shot from the quick sampler engine, if you had this one all by itself, you played all the notes, it would just go up and down with the one key. So it sounds like with the step sequencer, it's reaching into each of the individual components, and as I change this, it's triggering that differently. So I can come through and say I've got A1, and if I want to just like fry that down into a lower note. So that's actually super cool, because what I can do then, for instance, if I wanted to, let's just option click this over to like a fourth section here that's all by itself, and then option shift on the note for this hi-hat and have it go down like that for the final one. So that's the first ones. Come on, give me a... Okay, so it kind of did it, but I need to make that a little bit more pronounced maybe. But Okay, that is super awesome. That is like the best feature, I think. Theoretically, it should have worked like this in the first place, but because each of those are triggering individual components of the DMD. But the fact that it's working like that now means that you can do some amazing things with the step sequencer with drums and get patterns that have pitch shifting. Like I really like the idea of the kick, how that's going up and down in pitch, because I like how you can change that. It's so easy. Again, all of these things you could have done like in other places. You don't need a step sequencer for this. What what the benefit is that you get to do this now in like 30 seconds instead of like 15 minutes of programming in the piano roll. There are some people who are like 15 minutes, but I'm like think of like a brand new engineer who has ideas for beats and the steps you have to do to figure out how to do all of this in the piano roll, as opposed to being like, you know what, try this out in the step sequencer, put the notes on each of the steps, and then like do this thing with the pitch on the hi-hat. That workflow is a lot simpler than if you had to like go from the very beginning using all of the other tools. Does it feel weird that that's where a lot of us started? We've started making music back when it was harder and now it's easier and so other people can do it easier? No, I think it's awesome. Let everybody do this. Yeah, I'm not surprised. And the reason why I'm not surprised is because um, the DMD has all of those individual instruments as its slots, but the drum kit designer doesn't. Um, it kind of does under the hood, but the way the interface is, it doesn't do it that way. So, for instance, this is the last thing I think I'm going to have time for tonight. Let's do a new track. And for this one, I'm going to load up the drum kit designer. So let's go back to the beginning for a minute. And let's enter in some notes. Hi-hat. Right? So we have our hi-hat in. I'm going to turn this up so you can all hear it a little bit more, just with the nice human feel to it. So with this one, what we would do on the hi-hat is this right there. So I would come in and say, ooh, let's see, I want to add and do tuning, right? Did that add it in? Okay, it did. So then let's move this up to this. And this isn't ideal, I don't think, but it does work. So Option Shift, and then I can do the same thing I was just doing a minute ago. So that's what I just saw your comment come through after I finished that, but you could do it this way and it would accomplish the same thing. Is it as easy as doing it the other way? No, but certainly kind of cool at the same time. So we can still do it, but it's like an extra step. But what you were saying here with this note, that's all of the other sounds. So that doesn't do it with the drum kit designer, but with the DMD, the drum machine designer, it lets you access each individual module when you're doing the notes here. I'd have to go back and see exactly what the last version of Logic. The last thing, just so that we could wrap up on one other thing that I found out that Logic does today that I didn't see anywhere, because I checked every single preference menu and everything compared to the old version. Finally, under display, we actually have light and dark mode now. So that's why in the daytime my menus were all white and at night they were all dark, because my system setting is set up. I don't remember seeing that in the documentation, and this wasn't in the last version of Logic before 10.7. So if you have your system set up to do light and dark mode on a timer throughout the day, then it'll do that. But if you always want it to be the lighter mode for that, then that's more the menus and things. I'm going to keep it lighter because I like it lighter. Let's do lighter. Let's keep it lighter all the time. Okay. That's it for this today. Thanks for tuning in at this deeper dive with the step sequencer. And I hope this was helpful for any of you watching this later on. If you made it this far, you're crazy. You should really stop watching and go live your life and not be in this video for the past hour. But thanks anyway. And thanks for all of you who are watching this moment. Small crew, but you're the hardcore Logic people who deserve all the best in your life. So I'm going to sign out. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night.